because of part of this.
Okay. All right, let me call to order this regular meeting of the Ledyard Town Council of January 25th. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, Roxanne, would you please call the roll?
Mrs. Davis? Here. Mr. Dombrowski?
Here.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Here.
Mr. France?
Here.
Mr. Marshall?
Here.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Here.
Mr. Sons?
Yeah, here.
Mr. Sullivan?
Here.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Here.
9 here, 0 absent.
Okay, we have a quorum. Are there residents or property owners who wish to speak to the council? No? Seeing none? Okay. Committee, commissions, and board reports. We have none on our agenda. That's correct. So next item is comments of town councilors. Yes, Councilor Marshall.
Just like to say congratulations to Officer Kempe and his four-legged partner Lambo for apprehending a car thief here in town. Alleged car thief. There's no reason why we need the four-legged canine force left intact. They do a very good job. Lambo was able to track this guy right to the residence, to the alleged residence, and apprehend him.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Yes, Councilor Eichelberg.
Sadly, the mayor has let us down, and we did actually have 2 snowstorms since our last break. Three snowstorms since our last regular meeting. However, I would like to note that in contrast to some of the surrounding towns, our snowplow and sanding teams were out there very fast. Our roads were cleared immediately, and we were able to get around town pretty easily. I know that New London was not nearly as diligent, and I just want to say thank you to them.
And Town Hall stayed open.
Yes, it did.
So I want to second that. I had the unfortunate experience of driving through the storm from here to Greenfield, Mass., and it was worse than Ledyard. But Ledyard's roads were no different from the state roads, were no different from the interstates. They were all bad in terms of a storm. But I was really pleased to see how much got done, how quickly in the period of the storm they covered. I thought they did a great job.
Did you take any fire hydrants out?
I've been looking. I haven't seen one yet.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I was in Orlando, Florida last Friday. It was 79 degrees. So you're not doing as well as the mayor of Orlando, but you and your team are doing a fine job.
See, I told you, January.
Are there any other councilor comments? Okay, I have a comment. Today, the mayor, myself, and Councilor Wadecki, we went to Hartford, met with Representative Tom Reynolds and the Attorney General. We had 2 separate meetings. The first one was with the Attorney General George Jepsen, and the second meeting was with the Lieutenant Governor Nancy Wyman. The purpose of the meetings was to just apprise them of the ongoing litigation we have with the AC Coin case. It's a case that involves tax issues over on the Mashantucket Pequot Reservation. And because of the regime change, if you will, and we used to have Attorney General Dick Blumenthal, he's moved on. We wanted an opportunity to discuss it with Attorney General Jepsen. The state of Connecticut is part of the case. And then we went over and we talked to the Lieutenant Governor just more about policy issues in general. And I'm pleased to report that we received we had a good reception up there in Hartford. We're encouraged that our state officials are behind us in our efforts, and don't know if anything particular or concrete will come out of it, but we will certainly keep the public apprised of any developments. For those of you watching, currently the case involving the court case involving that we're involved with, it's labeled AC Coin. That is a tax issue where there's several $100,000s a year of property taxes that are at issue. That case is at a point where all the paperwork has been given to the court, and we will now be waiting for perhaps as much as 6 months for the court to issue a ruling, and we'll let you know when we have a ruling on the case. Okay? Yes, Councilor.
All I wanted to do was thank Representative Reynolds for getting us the first appointment, and then at the last minute, he was able to get us a second appointment. I thought he did a fine job, and I appreciated his effort.
Yes, that is very true. I would second that. Okay, any other councilor comments? All right, if not, move on to approval of meeting minutes. We have
So
the regular
moved.
meeting minutes of
Second.
January 11th. We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay, hearing none.
The snowstorm, I know my comments down.
Roxanne, call the roll, please.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Abstain.
Mr. Soms?
Nicely done. Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
I have to abstain even if I moved them. I wasn't there.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
7 in favor, 2 abstention.
Okay, the motion passes. Next item is the communications. We have a communications list that has been provided. Are there any comments, questions, additions? Okay, hearing none, we will move to the subcommittee and liaison reports. The Administrations Committee, Councilor Eichelberg.
The administration committee met in a special meeting earlier tonight, and we will discuss some of that in motions later on.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for administration? All right, Community Services, Councilor Marshall.
We haven't met since our last meeting.
Okay, very well. Any questions? Finance, Chairman France.
Same thing, we met last week on Wednesday, and all the issues in the Board of Finance Committee will be brought down in
Any questions for finance? Okay, we are moving briskly. Information technology. Councilor Davis.
We haven't met, but I do have 2 things. One, kudos to the Library Commission for embracing IQM2 and starting to put their documents on the portal. And secondly, on Friday, I will be attending a municipal IT managers meeting where the discussion is IT and disaster response, an issue that's near and dear to my heart. And that will be up at the Manchester Public Works Facility, which is one of 2 real-life regional emergency operations centers. And it also includes a free lunch. So who said there was no such thing as a free lunch? I will be
Need a car
attending.
ride person?
These are natural disasters, these are not IT disasters.
I wanted,
We've had a few of those this week.
that was going to be my question. We did have the IT disaster this week. Do you know why?
I do not know why.
Okay. 'Cause that would be something I think would be interesting to know why, only to know if it was an issue that we could have corrected sooner. If it was not an issue we could have corrected, is there any way we can prevent it from happening again? Because it was pretty bad to be down for 4 days.
My understanding was a Comcast issue, but
I can tell you a little bit about it.
Okay, so we will wait till the mayor's report and we will hear more about it?
That's
Okay.
okay.
Very well. Anything else? Any
That
questions,
is it.
for other questions, for IT? Yes.
the status of laptops.
those have been ordered. It has been 2 weeks. I will be with Regina on the way to Manchester on Friday, and I had planned on asking her about the,
They're here.
They're here.
they are here?
Where
Okay.
are they?
Well, it's going to take a week or so to get them.
No, but that's why I'm asking, where are they? Are they in the town council office? Or
No,
is it
she
Virginia?
has
She
them.
could have them. She said it would take a week or 2 to get them set up.
Yeah.
Okay. Land use.
We have not met since our last meeting.
Question, is the beaver issue going away?
No,
It's still there?
still there.
Any motion?
No motions,
No movement?
no movement on the movers.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Board of Education liaison.
No report.
Any other liaisons? Yes.
I'll make it quick. I wanted to recognize Rick Stevens of Groton Utilities, who provides Ledyard with water and services. Rick Stevens was awarded an award. The State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection nominated him and another person, Mr. Sini. They received an Environmental Protection Agency award for the operation of the Groton Utilities wastewater treatment plant, and I just wanted to recognize them for their excellence.
Okay. Any questions for WPCA liaison? Any other liaison reports? Yes, Councilor Franks.
The Historic District Commission met on Monday evening. A couple things that they talked about note. Mr. Ganong and Mr. Dolphin will be presenting two meetings, one to the Westerly Historical Society on the 26th of February and one to the Ledyard Historical Society on the 14th of February, related to the sawmill and its history. And they're looking at that as an opportunity to improve awareness of what the sawmill is and its history, and they're working on cleaning that up. And they have also have 2x10s that they're looking to potentially sell. So they're looking at how to market those. They're seeing if they have a use for it. So another opportunity.
Lots of
Turn
2x10s.
to the camera there and say they have 2x10.
2x10s for sale. They've not established how they're going to. They're looking at the. They're going to talk with Marshall Hancock to account whether there's an account existing and how to do the function of that. But that is something they were looking at. Also report the Lester House did purchase their generators hooked up and tested, so Lester House now has a backup power supply if they ever lose power there again. And also of note is they have an energy audit plan. I guess they contacted CLMP a couple months ago. They have followed up with them and are receiving attention, but they're doing an energy audit of their spaces to receive some advice from CLMP on how to be more efficient. And I believe that's the.
Okay, any questions regarding the Historical District Commission? Any other liaison reports? Okay, next item on the agenda is the mayor's report. Mr. Mayor.
I appreciate all of your kind comments on the snow. I'll never forget someone who sat in this chair stating that snow removal was in the eye of the beholder, and I would add that comment. It was the first. We had a couple of practice runs during the week. Monday night kind of caught us a little bit flat-footed because just to explain to everyone, because I know some folks, the system we use now is a little different than before. What you typically try to do, if you can, is get out in front of the storm, lay down the salt mixture that we use, and that prevents the snow and the ice from binding to the road, and that helps you a little bit down the road. I know some folks get a little concerned, myself included, when you come out on the roads the day after the storm and you see some icy spots and there's no sand down. We're all used to having sand down. You feel you get a much warmer feeling when you have that. But you try to get out that way. Sometimes you can do that if you know the storm's coming and you get out in front. In one case, I believe on Monday night, we were not able to do that. Thursday was a little bit more substantial, and we made a call. We were a little bit behind the storm in getting out, and I myself was at a meeting, and it came in earlier than we thought, and the roads were as bad as I had ever seen on Thursday night. And that was just a few inches. But what we did on Saturday, knowing the storm was coming Saturday, we had a little bit more advance notice. I did meet with the appropriate staff. We came up with a plan as to when we would call the people in. And then, Saturday, I basically sat on Facebook and, asked for real-time feedback from people. How are the roads? Let us know where the problem areas are. And, it sounds good, and you do get some very interesting reports back, and I have to thank everyone that was very kind. People basically want the roads clear, and they want them clear as soon as possible, but it's all a timing thing. There are a couple of roads where, if you figure it takes a good 3 hours to do one pass, we have 11 routes, okay? It takes 3 to 4 hours. That's more than we thought it would take. And so, the snow ended at 2 o'clock. If the plow happened to come by your road right at 2 o'clock when the snow stopped, hey, you were golden. It was great. Unfortunately, 4 hours before, it was 4 hours since the plow had been on your street before that. So looking out, your window, you don't think a plow had been by. So it was interesting to get some feedback. What we've tried to do, and I said that even when I was on the council, identify the top 10. We've got the top 10 locations in town. Every one of you knows where they are, and make sure we hit those first and we keep up with those. But the other interesting thing is, and again, here's where technology is going to come into play, is we have some technology right now. The trucks do have a GPS system, but it's not a real-time GPS system. It has to be downloaded every time the trucks go back. So it doesn't help you a tremendous amount during the storm, but you get some very good and interesting data after the storm. What we've been doing is let's look at some of these spots that people were, telling us about. In one case, sending us pictures, and you're talking to people, and then when they say, you call them over to your computer and you say, hey, here's a picture, at this time, so we know exactly what's going on. But I think there's more that can be done there. Maybe we need to go with a different type of system, something that is real time. My neighbor calls me from across the street and says, hey, in Chicago, you get on a website, you push the button, you can see every road in the city, which ones have been plowed, where every plow truck is, and things like that. I don't know that we don't want to arm our citizens with that type of knowledge. But bottom line is, I was not satisfied with what we did. And I think we can do better. And we're going to work on that, and we're going to see what we can do. Our public works, Steve Maslin does an excellent job in terms of the routes, in making sure the routes are equalized. Besides the 11 routes, we had 3 or 4 other pickup trucks that were out helping out. And it was not, it was 8 to 10 inches of snow, which is not the worst we've seen. So I think we did all right, but we can do better, and that's what we're going to try to do. In the land use area, the zoning enforcement, wetlands enforcement officer job was posted internally. We are ready to go out with that job for an external posting. The job description is with the council, and I certainly would take your approval. We've gone out with a draft job description that is contingent, it states right on there, is contingent on council approval of the funding. So, we're optimistic that we can get some good candidates there. Further on that, the reorganization and operation of land use is ongoing. We're reviewing that. I have shared my thoughts for what the land use department should look like with appropriate folks, some of the land use committee, admin committee. What's happening there also, though, is that they've been very helpful, the land use department has been very helpful in looking at how technology can be brought in there. We've brought in 2 software developers already. I sat in on one of those meetings, and we have another 1 or 2 that will be coming in. The thought being to automate the system such that, ultimately, people could apply for permits online. Once the permit is applied for, they could then come in, and again, the staff then could track the permit as it's going. There are automatic notifications, literally on a certain date, when there's action required on the permit. You would see everything that's available. You push a button, and out pops all the appropriate letters. The person, once it's approved, can from home print out their own permit that they can post at their house. There are many things that can be done with this, and it has implications for other departments in the town that are looking to do the same type of thing, which is to bring technology in such that people can do as much as possible from their homes before coming, or when they show up at the town hall. There could be a terminal there. and right on the spot they could apply for these, for the type of information they need or type of permit. So there's much that we can do. Again, I'm very pleased that our personnel have taken the initiative with this and are working on this, recognizing that it makes their job easier and it also increases the quality of the service that we provide. Once we do get to a point, what I've asked them to do is, when we do get to a point where we've seen all of the software that's available, put together some summary sheets, and then get together with the IT committee of the council, let them know what we've seen, what our thoughts are. Now, I recognize that every one of these pieces of software is beyond the bid limit, so we may have to look at that. What do we want to do? There is quite a wide range in the price of these types of programs that we could use. We also recognize that the COG has applied for a grant to obtain an existing program from somewhere in the Hartford area that would be provided to the town. That's great. We could get that program for free. It's a proven program, but I have a couple of problems with that. First of all, are we going to get the grant? Secondly, if we get the grant, how long is it going to take to get that incorporated? And third, it's very expensive. And is that something we want to take on? We can adapt this not just to the building department, but we could tie in zoning, planning, wetlands. You could put whatever you want on there, and it would also allow the information, once a CO is issued, to be sent up to the assessor's office, which is very important to us. So, again, things are ongoing there, and we will keep you informed of what's going on. I thought Councilor Davis would bring up about her meeting with Job Lot.
Oh,
Okay? I'll defer if it's okay to
Sure.
give a
Sorry.
quick report on that.
I met with Mark Bancroft, the mayor's assistant, with some folks from Job Lot. They wanted some ideas of how they could make the building in the parking lot look more attractive. And silly me, I was thinking, let's put lipstick on a pig, and I'm thinking change the light bulbs, paint some trim, do some little things like that. But they have big plans, and hopefully the fellows that we met with have to have it approved by the bigwigs of the company, but they have some nice ideas. They do hope to move forward with those plans if they get approval, but even if they don't get approval of those, they hope to do something, at least something, to make the building more attractive. They were very cognizant of the complaints that the citizens of the town have registered online and in the newspaper. The one gentleman said that he had cut out anything he's read and sent it to the higher-ups, and I said, oh, well, we could help you with that and get more. He said, no, that'll be okay, because you know where I go with that. But so anyway, we were quite pleased, and they have some possible interests, and so hopefully we'll get some good news in the future.
Again, I echo Councilor Marshall's compliments to our police for their work on the car theft, and also to the police for having a visible presence. I know a couple of mornings I've come into town pretty early, and
They're right there.
and
They're
they
watching
were there,
for you.
Ledyard Center, and then someplace else that I wasn't expecting. Nothing.
He doesn't want to tell us the other places, so we won't know where they're
It's
sitting.
good to see, and I appreciate that, and I let them know that. As far as the internet goes, I have to say that I don't have a lot to share with you because it's something that got fixed. It got fixed by someone named Jennifer. All we know is this person named Jennifer out there. It took a long time to find her.
And she stepped 5 minutes.
Yeah, she was able to fix the problem. I do know from what was told by someone who was up a pole, because that's how we were getting information, because getting through to Comcast is near impossible. Regina was at her wit's end. Mark got involved in it. Any of you that have tried to call Comcast, you got to go through 15 different steps, and if you want to get a supervisor. And they were just not much help at all. and then this person was able to help us.
For people who
Oh, I'm
aren't
sorry.
aware, what exactly was the problem?
The
How did it
problem-
manifest itself?
Our service was extremely slow to the point where it was difficult to accomplish any of our business here. As you know, Roxanne couldn't load any of her documents onto the,
And that was
so-
true for what days?
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
you know,
The scarier thing was Nancy was not able to make the payroll tax deposit for the town of Fletcher.
Do we have any indication that if people sent an email or anything, did all of those ultimately get received? Or do we have indications that perhaps emails that might have been sent were never received?
I got a couple of notices that an email was having trouble being sent. I'm pretty certain that emails that I sent got through, I think. So that it just was extremely slow to the point where you couldn't do business normally.
Okay, so we had a problem, but it's now over, and we don't think that there were any, we don't think that there are communications out there that have been lost. Is that the
I
case?
can't say for certain. Again, things were slow. I don't plan to leave this alone. I think we need to pursue this. Comcast is our provider, but we need to look at alternatives if they're not responsive. So we will be following up on that, and that is my report.
Questions for the mayor? Mr. Mayor, the CVS over in Gills Ferry, can you comment on that?
Yes, we are extremely close.
How close?
This close. But I did receive an email, which I didn't have time to forward, from Representative Reynolds. He made contact with the Department of Transportation and received some feedback from them. I'll forward that to you. And there's words in there I don't understand. So, but it's the wheels are turning, and we're waiting for a letter from them of approval.
Okay, and we believe that that is the last step before an actual closing of the property?
Yes. Once we get approval from the state, that should be the last piece, and we should immediately be able to set a closing date.
Once we close, how fast will we see the CVS? Have they indicated how fast they put it up?
No, I don't think we've gotten to those talks. I mean, the thought was always that they did say that if they broke ground in the spring, meaning March, and I don't know if that's feasible anymore, that they were talking about a late summer, early
Okay, so it's not.
So they're looking at
This
like
year.
a 6 month. Yes, it would be this year. It looks like a 6 month turnaround would be reasonable.
Yes?
I just wanted to mention that I was able to visit the old Gales Ferry School gymnasium, and what a nice job they've done getting that ready for the jazzercise folks. It really looks nice. It really looks nice.
And who did that nice job?
Public Works, our building department, yes, they did a fantastic job on that.
Great.
And I did sign an agreement this afternoon with Lisa Mazzaro, on that, and they will be starting there on Monday.
Okay. And one other update item, on our last meeting, we approved a resolution supporting 20 acres of acquisition off of Route 12 involving the state and the submarine base. Is there any update on that effort?
None, except I did send they wanted the assessor's sheet so they could get a value, the appraisal of the property. That was yesterday, and I did receive notice that, they're looking, the bond commission meets every month. They're looking to get it on this month's bonding.
Okay, so we're waiting for the state bond
The
commission
state,
to...
the next step would be the state to appropriate that money for bonding, and then we would be notified of that, and then we would take the steps, once we were guaranteed the funding was there, we would take the steps needed, whether a survey needed to be done. I have not seen the exact figures. We did tell them that we would need we told them a figure of about $30,000 in addition to the negotiated purchase price would probably cover the survey and the legal costs of closing on the property.
For those of you watching who are not familiar, we're talking about the town potentially acquiring as open space about 20 acres of property that lies off of Route 12 near the submarine base, but outside the submarine base. And the state would potentially actually pay for the purchase, and it would be done in order to have essentially a buffer zone outside of the submarine base, which might improve the submarine base's military value in a future base closure. So if that comes to pass, we might own 20 more acres as a town of open space, but more to follow. Thank you for the update. Any other questions for the mayor? Okay, hearing none, we will go to, we have no old business on the agenda. We have, before we get to new business, does anybody have any reason to wish to amend it, to amend the agenda? Okay, hearing none. New business, item 1, Administration Committee.
No action on item 1.
Okay. And item 2 as well, which is, I think, related to item 1.
No, I was going to do item 2.
I'd like to make a motion to set a public hearing date on February 8, 2012, to be held at 6:45 p.m. in the council chambers, Annex Building, 741 Colonel Ledyard Highway, to receive comments and recommendations concerning the lease between the town of Ledyard and Southeastern Connecticut Regional Resource Recovery Authority for the use of a portion of the former Gales Ferry School building located at 7 Hurlbut Road, Gales Ferry, in accordance with Connecticut General Statute 7-163E.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Can you give us a little background, Chairman Eichelberg?
Basically, we are looking at setting up a lease with SCARA, and according to Connecticut General Statute, there needs to be a public hearing for this, and so that's what this is setting.
Okay.
We didn't act on item 1.
We did not act on item 1 because we don't actually have the lease in hand. When we have the lease, we will review it. We will forward it to the Planning Commission for their review. But until we actually have it, we didn't want to act on item 1.
Okay.
We haven't had the public hearing either, so.
And who has the lease? Do we know?
The mayor.
Let me just
Yeah,
clarify
sorry,
there.
please.
SCARA currently occupies, has a lease that was signed in 2010. I believe it was a short-term lease. It was renewed once, but in looking at it, it expired in October. So they're really there without a lease. And so, as was said, our policy now is to follow state statute and therefore to have a public hearing. We are in the process of the lease that's there now is very brief, and we want to formalize those and make those standards. So yes, we're working on that, and we will have that for you prior to the public hearing.
Okay.
Item 1 was allowing the mayor to sign a lease that we haven't seen nor had public hearing on.
No, I
So
understand.
that's why we didn't do 1.
Yeah, my apologies. These action items were written for a different reason, and when we changed them,
Yeah.
that didn't get omitted.
Didn't have to apologize, we just didn't act on it. And
Oh, that's
want
true.
everybody to know why we didn't act on it.
Okay, I guess my question, and no objection to having a public hearing, but when will the members of the public be able to inspect the lease that we're going to have a hearing on? Because that's really the question.
That should happen at the same time we put in the notice. So if the notice goes, it has to be 5 days in advance, or it'll be on Monday. We will have a draft of the lease available by Monday at
Okay.
the same time. And in the, okay, all right.
I'm sorry, can we say that louder so people can hear? What?
When is it going to be available? Monday or Friday?
We will make every attempt to have it available Friday.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to set a public hearing? Okay, hearing none. Roxanne, call the roll.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Eichelberg?
Aye.
9 in favor, 0
Now we have, okay, the motion passes.
You just couldn't let it go.
And just to add one final comment, that public hearing will be right here, and it will be 15 minutes before the next council meeting. Okay, item 3 on the agenda. Edmund.
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Mr. Gerald Kaminsky of 58 Partridge Hollow, Galesbury, to the Permanent Municipal Building Committee for a 3-year term ending March 26, 2013, filling a vacancy left by Mrs. Mendenhall.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion?
Fine choice. Good minds think alike.
Okay, we got 2 objects. All right, Roxanne, call roll.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the motion passes. Next item, Finance Committee.
Make a motion to approve the defined contribution plan as amended in the draft dated January 6, 2012, and authorize the trustees to sign the documents for the designation.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Do we have some background there?
Yes. The defined contribution plan, we have one member, one employee who is already under that plan. The discussion came about in the December meeting with the Finance Committee. We reviewed the plan, had some questions. These questions were answered, and the Finance Director provided a memo explaining her discussion with the Nationwide. And they dealt with 5 issues that we thought needed to be added to the plan. One dealing with the ability for employees to have loans or access to it to take loans on their behalf, a hardship distribution, rollovers, for eligible employees who were not participants, a question about normal retirement age, and groups of funds. The first 3 items we received back essentially to make the plan an enticement for employees and a good benefit for them, having access to it, providing them loans, or the access to loans, hardship distribution, and as well to allow rollovers. Those changes were all made to the plan before it was submitted. There was a window through early January where we could make changes to the plan without incurring a cost for that. If at any time in the future we want to make changes, we can. There's just a cost incurred to that. So those changes were made as a point of clarity. The plan was submitted before 31 December because there was a deadline that had to come back. And there was this window of a couple weeks until early January to make changes to this plan. So this plan is in effect for the management staff of the town, and is being offered, or may be offered in the union employees during negotiations in the future. So it offers an alternative to a defined benefit plan. The issue with the normal retirement age was a question that was set at 65. We left it there. Essentially, that number is only if you make no decision on how your money is invested, it decides which fund that is tied to a targeted fund, targeted to the retirement age, where that money will be defaulted to be invested. So we felt that was a conservative approach, left that alone. And the group of funds was reviewed by the pension board and proposed by Nationwide. Left that alone. No changes from that.
But we did recommend that those funds go to the pension board in case the pension board felt that we should use a different group of funds.
Right.
Okay. Are there questions for finance?
Just a comment that this plan is the town's side. The employee's been putting his money in for the last year, and the town was required to put our contribution in at 12/31. That's why the plan was set up before 12/31. But we're in compliance.
Mr. Solomon.
So if I heard you right, if we have changes that the town wants to make to the plan in future years, we can make those changes. There's a cost to make them. those would be town costs.
Correct. The town costs.
We can change it, we can
Right.
modify it.
And we've also have considered moving from nationwide. We just set it up at nationwide because that's where we already had the employee side. So we've got it all set up.
Yep.
Now we have to change our ordinance that gives all of this to the pension board, and then we let them decide.
Yeah, as I recall, when we approved an ordinance right before
Yes.
the end of the calendar year. And there were some items in the ordinance that were specific about this plan. It had some words in there about the vesting rights, et cetera. And as I recall at the time, it was unclear to me what would happen in the event that there was a conflict between the words of the ordinance and what was actually approved in the plan. Have you looked at that? Have you looked at what's in the ordinance now as opposed to what's in this plan that's before us today?
Sure, which way you have referred to the admin.
Okay.
So the admin's done that yet. We're looking into it.
Admin has looked at it. We basically looked at it and we made one amendment to it to basically defer the town plan to I believe the employee plan. Is that correct, Kevin?
Yeah, we wrote, and it hasn't gone to full admin yet for discussion after we get our next
Correct.
meeting. But we've added with the proposed language that we're going to add into it, just to say that if there's a conflict between the ordinance or the defined contribution plan, the defined contribution plan takes precedence.
So that's going to be an amendment to the ordinance.
That's correct.
Yes. Because we did not have a full committee at our last regular meeting, we wanted to make sure that the full committee had an opportunity to look at it.
Okay, so the intention will be that this plan and all these documents that are before us tonight, if that happens to be some conflict between these documents and the ordinance, not that we expect there to be, but if somebody finds one, these documents prevail. Is that the intention?
Correct,
That's
yes.
the intent.
Don't go looking at it.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, hearing none. Call the roll, please, on the motion.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the motion passes. Next item under finance.
Motion to recommend the town council acknowledge department head transfers for the month of December 2011 as listed in FPR number 1118.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, we do have a list of transfers. No discussion. Call the roll.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Soms?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Motion passes. Last item on our agenda. Council France.
Make a motion to approve the following transfers to fund the zoning enforcement inland wetlands officer. Transfer $17,768.91 from account line 1-60-4-100, assistant to the planner, and transfer $7,231.09 from account line 1-720-20-120, IWWC consultant. Transfer $25,000 to account line 1-770-0-1 zoning and wetlands enforcement officer.
Second.
Do we have a motion and a second? Can you give us some background?
The town desires to have a zoning enforcement officer. As a goal that's been identified by the mayor, is needing attention in order to fund that account line or that employee. Needed to transfer money from planner, assistant planner, and the consultant into a line item to pay an enforcement officer.
Something just occurred to me though. Is this an inter or intra-department transfer?
Explain the significance, please.
Because
for those of us
an
who are
inter-department transfer can occur up to 10% of their budget or with approval of the council. When it's an intra, in other words, from one department to another, it cannot occur until after April 1st.
I can address that. I am the Director of Land Use, and I see the land use as one department.
I recognize that, but the numbers indicate that. I'm not sure if they were considered one department when the budget was done. And in the whole scheme of things, it doesn't matter, because if we give you the first amount of money and say, go ahead and hire the person, after April 1st, we'll give you the second set of money, it doesn't matter. But if it is intra, and they're not the same department, we can't, by charter, make that transfer. And so, I don't know, I'm not trying to cause trouble, but I don't want to do something that violates the charter.
Nevertheless.
Hey, I
And this
follow.
was the last item on the agenda.
I know, and
Okay.
we can approve it if you want to. You can just approve the first half and find out about the second half. But as long as we give money, this position can be hired. If we all agree that we want the position hired, if we can't transfer the second half, April 1st, we can do it anyway. And we can allow for over expenditure and a line item, because that's the authority by charter, we can do that. So either way, if you think you don't care, we can just go with it. If you think it might be intra, we can just do half and allow over expenditure until April 1st.
Okay, so for a little summary and history for everybody, about 4 years ago, we had a lineup where amongst the town employees, we had a planner, an assistant planner, we had a zoning enforcement officer, and
Building.
a zoning enforcement officer / inland wetlands consultant, and a building official. Okay, at some point, we decided to, due to reduced construction in the town, combine the zoning enforcement position with the building position. But the person who had both jobs was not qualified to do the inland wetlands, so we hired a temporary, part-time inland wetlands person. All right, so if you come here a year ago, we had a planner, an assistant planner, a combined building zoning, and a part-time inland wetlands. Okay, and now the assistant planner position has been vacated. We are not hiring somebody, and we're splitting back out building and zoning, and once again combining zoning with inland wetlands. Everybody follow all that? So no more people are being added to payroll, we're just shifting around the payroll. And we have a question about whether or not we can actually shift the money from one line to another in order to accomplish that shift in the middle of the year. That's the question.
That's the question.
Can I address that?
Yes, please.
If I have the charter. If you look at the index of the charter, Chapter 6, Section 6 is entitled Department of Land Use and Planning, and it lists Chief Building Official A, B, Zoning Official, C, Wetlands Enforcement, D, Planning, D, Economic Development. So per the charter, they call that a department.
Right.
I recognize that our budget, when you look at it, has a whole number of things. For instance, the mayor's department has 2 separate ones. But again, I'll go by the charter. I can go either way. I agree. It doesn't make any difference except for Councilor France, who I know I'd be saving him at least one transfer down the road, and I know he would appreciate that.
Well, I know we actually asked the finance director to give us departments, and we did do some discussion on it in the last finance committee, but we never resolved it. Because the issue is, the way our budget's written up, all these departments, like the question came up, the town attorney, is that under the mayor's department? In our budget, it looks like its own department. So this all came up because of that, but I will defer to the charter listing that all is one department and say the numbers don't matter, let's just vote.
Okay, so having made a stink over nothing.
Okay. Okay, now you can.
Sharon, you know I love you.
I know.
We don't have 2 Diaz to play off, so I'll play off you, so we need
Thanks.
I need to try to pick up the slack. Okay, no other discussion then? Roxanne, call roll.
Mrs. Davis?
Yes.
Mr. Dombrowski?
Yes.
Mr. Eichelberg?
Yes.
Mr. France?
Yes.
Mr. Marshall?
Yes.
Mrs. McGrattan?
Yes.
Mr. Downs?
Yes.
Mr. Sullivan?
Yes.
Mrs. Wadecki?
Yes.
9 in favor, 0 opposed.
Okay, the motion passes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Without objection, we are adjourned.
You were just getting back to my comment, John.